Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would load a little bit of 45 ACP and chat with you guys about why I still think the 308 is the best all-around prepper rifle cartridge. And there's actually a lot of reasons for that, and I want to state, guys, this is just my opinion. You know what, if you guys disagree with me, have your own opinion, that's okay, you're entitled to that opinion. I am not an absolute expert on everything firearms. I'm a firearm enthusiast. You know, I've been shooting and hand loading pretty much since my childhood, off and on at different points in my life. I'm 41 years old. I have a lot of experience around this stuff. I've seen a lot of things in terms of ballistics, trends in the market, everything else. And I still feel like to this day the 308 Winchester is the best all-around prepper and survival cartridge. And yeah, I think it is a better choice still than even the really popular, which I think is a great cartridge, the 6.5 Creedmoor. I think it's a fantastic cartridge. 223, which I have shot thousands and thousands of rounds of in my life and have hand loaded like 10,000 rounds of and shot in my life. Cartridge I'm very familiar with. I think it's better than 7.62 by 39, which again I've shot a lot of over the years. Never hand loaded for it, but I've shot a lot of it. So I mean, I've got experience with these different cartridges, and I still feel the 308 brings the most to the table because of the versatility. And again, every one of these choices has drawbacks. The 308 has drawbacks. And the biggest drawback is the weight of the ammo. A lot of people say, well, that's why the military doesn't use it. Yes, yeah, but the military doesn't have the same needs. So when we talk about general purpose prepping, I don't think the 223 can compete with it. Yes, the military uses it, but infantry have machine gun, artillery, air support, everything else. Right? They are not doing all of the work with their small arms. Right? They're not doing all the work, and then there's the logistics end of supply in getting all the ammo for what they're doing. There's, again, pencil pushers and everything else involved in that. And you, as a recreational survivalist or prepper, are not going to have the same supply logistics or the same support that they're going to have. So there's a lot going on there, and I think when it comes down to it, the 223 is anemic. I think you can do a lot to make up for that. I've discussed that with different ammo choices, barrel lengths. But the 308 just simply brings way more power to the table than the 223. The ammo isn't that much heavier that you're going to struggle to carry it. I mean, if you're in a situation where you couldn't hump 200 rounds at 308, you're just out of shape, right? You're out of shape. There's other things that you could work on there. Realistically, most people may not, in most prepping situations, even need to carry 200 rounds of it on them at all times. You know, the only time it really makes sense to have the really lightest ammo with the 223, given what you trade for it, which you give up, in true long-term prepper situations, is if you're going to have to be mobile and just pack up as much ammo as you can carry on your body, in which case being able to carry 500 rounds of it might become important because you're not going to have resupply and you're going to have to pack up and leave. If you're ever set up in a place to where you can transport your ammo with a vehicle, or you have a long-term place that you can sit out, the 308 is vastly superior in terms of stopping power, barrier penetration, armor defeating, lethality at effective range, stopping power, everything. It's a completely superior cartridge. Why do I still say it beats some of these other choices? A lot of it has to do with popularity of it and the fact that it has been a military cartridge. It is still short action, which means your auto-loading options are extremely vast. Everyone makes a 308. The ammo is everywhere. Components are easy to source. Brass, bullets, everything else. For hand loaders, how many of these other cartridges besides the 223, when people start looking at other things, they'll be, oh, 338 Federal, 6.5 Creedmoor, how many of those can you get cheap FMJ bullets for your plinking with? Exactly. And we could even argue if the cost of plinking a big rifle is expensive, this is where pistol caliber carbines become inexpensive to plink with. 22s become inexpensive to plink with if you just need practice. So even then, there's the argument made that maybe you shouldn't be doing all your plinking with your big rifles anyways, as far as your practice goes. There's more economic options available to you for practice. But even then, out of all of those, you don't have readily available large amounts of cheap FMJ bullets that you could hand load. You don't. The 308 you do. You don't have that with most of your other big cartridges, your other options. You really don't, other than the 223. And I think this is where the 308 shines. Because it was designed for auto-loading rifles, it tends to feed reliably. But when it was designed, they designed a very efficient caliber size versus cartridge capacity. The 308 you can get away with carbine style rifles with. All right, this is one of the areas of versatility you have with it. You can get away with shorter barreled rifles, 16 inch, 20 inch, whatever, and it's actually a very efficient cartridge. This makes it very versatile. Unlike some of the other things like the 6.5 Creedmoor, again, you've got a similar case capacity with a much smaller diameter bullet. All right, that dictates already that you have to use slower burning powders, and for every inch of barrel, you have what? You have less total volume for the gases to expand. You don't get nearly as much efficiency when you're stuck with a 16, 18-inch barrel, something like that you can get out of this. So for your smaller, lighter rifles, if you still want a full power cartridge, you get a lot more efficiency out of this. A lot more than some of the other options that are out there, even though they might have a slightly better ballistic coefficient. So you have a lot going for you there. And if you go further the other direction with something like a 338 Federal, which is basically a 308 with a bigger bullet, you get some of those same advantages, but again, it's lack of availability of components, no cheap ammo to shoot, starts to get very, very expensive. Whereas in this is still, in many cases, still cheaper to shoot than some of these other options like 6.5 Creedmoor. For any of your 7mm stuff like 7mm 08, all these other full powered cartridges, this is still cheaper to shoot, still launches a bigger, heavier bullet that makes more efficient use of every inch of barrel if you're stuck with carbine style rifles. Everyone makes rifles in it. You have a wide variety of options, tons of hand loading components. Everything is easily available for this, and when it comes to just sheer power, this rifle can take every single animal you're ever going to find in North America. All right, you can successfully take everything from grizzly bear to elk and moose with this without problems with a good bullet. Judging your ranges carefully of how far you can effectively shoot and shot placement. All right, you can kill anything in North America with it, so it's a very versatile hunting round, very versatile combat round. Again, works very well even in carbine style rifles still. Amazing stopping power on humans, barrier penetration ability. And then when we start talking about the fact that obviously you can get every bolt action, every company in the world makes a bolt action rifle in it. You have tons of used firearms available. That you just have a lot of options. Yes, a lot of those things we could say the same for the 223, but you simply are stuck with an intermediate cartridge. This is just simply a more effective cartridge all the way around. It simply is. And then, like I've said before, the military uses it because they have other weaponry to help fill the gap. In other words, they're oftentimes originally intended as a suppression fire weapon. Right? So their people could carry more ammo, lay down suppression fire. But they have other equipment available to do the real killing with. Right? This gives you a decisive advantage if you are, again, forced to go against someone using something else, and particularly if they have barriers to hide behind. You have way more barrier defeating capability, and you just have simply more stopping power. You're unlikely to hopefully have to shoot someone shooting at you to hit them multiple times, and you might have to, particularly with your green tip. This you're very unlikely to. Particularly with a good bullet, you're very unlikely to need to hit them twice. It's much more quick to neutralize a threat. You have, again, a lot of benefits here. And then when we compare to some of these other things, the fact that you can get things like ACOGs with a reticle that matches this actually is a big deal. So people say, well, why would something like that matter? Well, for your one main survival rifle, you got to fall back to one battle rifle that you have to depend on, that you might have to use in a firefight against other people out in the wilderness, an urban environment, whatever. Reticle like that matters. And anyone who's ever shot one, if you don't believe me, go take 5 human-sized silhouettes with that standard 19-inch width shoulder, and you go have someone stick them out in a field at random distances from you. And you take any other optic besides something like your ACOG, which again with a BDC reticle, something that doesn't have a BDC reticle, something that again like that has a 20-year life due to the tritium in it. You take that out in the field and you try any other firing solution system that you have for optics, and you see how quickly you can score a torso hit on those randomly placed targets that are placed randomly between 50 yards out to 500 yards from you, at random increments by someone out there. You take any other system you have and then compare it with an ACOG, and then see how many seconds it takes you to score a hit on each one. I think you're going to be shocked at how dramatically different it is. The ACOG was designed for that purpose, for a reason, and it works. And if you've gone out and done something like that, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. It allows you, once you learn how to use it, to get immediate doping. In other words, you don't have to you no longer have to know how far a man-sized target is to score a hit on them. You don't need to have to calculate anything. The reticle does it for you once you learn how to use it. So it doesn't matter if that guy is 450 yards or 250. You don't do any math. You just use the doping on it, and you put it on and you fire. And within a few seconds, you can score a hit on them and have it pretty close in terms of a few inches up or down, plus or minus. That's what it's designed to do. And if you're talking about a long-term survival weapon, the fact that they make ACOGs with a reticle for that is a big deal. It's a big deal because, so I would tell a lot of people that's probably the direction you want to go if you want to dump some money in something. So the fact that there is a BDC reticle for this on your ACOGs available matters. And there's only a handful of cartridges right now that have that. And I think that's relatively decisive if someone wants to, dump a few $1,000s into one rifle to carry with them to the end of the world. And out of all the cartridges you have right now that have that reticle, I think this is your most effective and versatile. And yeah, that matters. I think that matters, and it should matter. But when we go back to all the other stuff, is that if you've got to load just one cartridge and you're going to have a plethora of rifles, you're going to have semi-autos, you're going to have one with your ACOG, you're going to have some various bolt guns and stuff, you can get more versatility out of this than most of these other cartridges, right? Because everyone always says, what does everyone say? In your overall survival kit, if you're going to have multiple firearms, you probably need a bolt-action rifle and 308. Well, that means you're probably going to have a bunch of 308. Even if you have multiple calibers, you're still going to probably have some 308 in there, so you might as well have a couple different styles of rifles chambered in it, which, well, you might as well go ahead and use it as a primary survival cartridge then. Just throwing that out there. Because it's very versatile. It can be used in for close quarters, close range, or urban warfare, and with the right hand loads, the right barrels, the right rifles, it's an effective 1,000-yard cartridge also. And obviously the majority of us are not going to have our skills up to point all the time to be shooting that far, but I'm pointing out that the options are available. It is extremely versatile, and you have a lot of support for it out there as far as actual equipment, hardware, everything else, and that matters. That matters. Had they made a 312 Winchester instead and it got the same popularity, we would be shooting that instead because it would have all the hardware support. And that's one way to look at it, is because of the equipment that's already out there. It makes it a real winner. And stuff like 6.5 Creedmoor has a long way to go still to catch up. And we could still always argue some of that. Maybe it doesn't have as much hitting power in close, and that might matter. And again, this stuff could all change in the future, but I still believe as of right now, with what's available out there, I still lean in the direction of the 308 as my preferred survival cartridge. It's just me personally. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.